680 CJOB. Raywat Deonandan is an epidemiologist at the University of Ottawa. I want to talk to him about the Manitoba and Canadian situation, but also worldwide, where we're seeing COVID-19 headed. Raywat, let's begin at home here in Manitoba. That test positivity rate remaining stubbornly high, only over 100 cases today, but still a 10-point positivity rate. What's going on here?
What's going on is the wave is declining, but clearly the penetration into society is still quite great. A lot of that's going to be asymptomatic and mild cases, possibly the result of people with one dose still getting infected but not being hospitalized. The takeaway for me is we're doing all the right things. We're vaccinating and cases are coming down. We just have to keep on vaccinating and make sure we accelerate those second doses.
And it's a slow situation, but rather than talking about months, we're down to weeks now.
That's right. For the extinguishing of this final wave. I hope it's the final wave. But the trick is we can't be opening up things too quickly and too vigorously lest we trigger a fourth wave, which is always in the cards, especially with the Delta variant lurking about.
And could our test positivity rate be high or appear to be high simply because in the past they have, suggested to people, if you have had obviously a close contact or if you've had exposure or been out of the province, then you should get tested. And I don't think that there's a huge number of people still flocking to get tested. And so that could skew that number a little bit.
That's right. So it's all dependent upon the denominator, who is getting tested. If it's people who are highly likely to be infected, then the test positivity rate is going to be very, very high. So if symptomatic people only are being tested, it's going to be a high number. If it's otherwise people who are just curious, the number comes down. It's a difficult indicator, the test positivity rate. It's not precise. In general, it's a hand-waving argument. It tells us two things. Really kind of how deeply penetrating the disease is, but also are we testing enough? So it might just be we're not testing as widely as we could be.
As we try to get more shots into arms and various governments, including the one here responsible for what we do in terms of our freedoms, the Manitoba government dangling carrots in forms of lotteries and saying, if we get this number of people inoculated, we'll give you these freedoms. Is there still an equally strong misinformation campaign being perpetrated either from people within inside this country or outside other countries that's fueling the hesitancy?
It is ramping up. It's accelerating, and it really, really worries me. So we're seeing websites popping up that look very, very professional, well-funded, spouting clearly incorrect information, stoking panic around vaccination. There is some evidence coming out of some intelligence sources suggesting that a lot of this is funded by foreign disinformation agents. That's not my field of expertise. I can't comment authoritatively on it, but it strikes me, it makes a lot of sense if our quote-unquote enemies are wanting to slow down our response to this pandemic. This is an easy way to do so. Weaponize our freedom of information against us. It is worrying, and the only way forward is to inoculate, pun intended, our population against bad ideas. Science literacy allows us to see through the nonsense. There is a lot of nonsense out there, so I ask people to look to true experts, look to universities, look to the government websites. If you don't trust government websites, certainly trust university websites for proper scientific information.
With University of Ottawa epidemiologist Raywat Deonandan on 680 CJOB, Richard and Julie with you on the news. How are we doing Canada-wise as far as cases are concerned, as far as vaccinations are concerned, and then bring that into context how Canada is doing worldwide?
So we have about 70% of our population has one dose, about 12% have two doses. Compare that to the USA, about 40% have two doses. The UK, about the same thing. Israel, famously, 60% has two doses. We are leading the world in terms of the rate of getting one dose into us, which is great. It's a good sign, but we're lagging our closest allies in terms of the number of people with two doses. Now, in terms of cases, we are well past the peak of this final wave. So I predict, and not just me, but the modeling suggests, we'll be done with this wave by the end of this month or the middle of next month. That should be the last of it, again, so long as we don't open up too fast and so long as we accelerate those second doses getting into arms, because the Delta variant is quite susceptible to 2 doses, but it's a bit more lenient when it comes to 1 dose. So globally, I think we're doing well, especially if you look at places like India and Brazil and parts of the world where they do not have sufficient vaccines. They're going to be struggling with this for months and possibly years. And so we have to make a global effort to quash these things everywhere.
And we're starting to see that from the G7 as more and more countries offer to buy vaccine to provide to those countries that could be struggling. And encouraging news, as you say, 1 dose okay against some of these variants, 2 doses certainly better, and experts smarter than I are looking to see whether mixing and matching is even more effective against those variants. But news that Novavax, that vaccine is looking promising.
Yeah, I've been excited by Novavax for many, many months, so I'm happy to see the data finally being public. It's a really interesting technology, and it looks quite powerful. Now, we probably don't need it in Canada because we are awash with the mRNA vaccines. But this is really great news for the rest of the world, because the Novavax vaccine can be stored in room temperature or fridge temperature. It doesn't need deep freeze, more easily transported. Canada will be one of the manufacturers of it, so we'll be contributing to getting it to the rest of the world. So this is really good news. There's no downside to Novavax entering the fight.
When you talk about that technology being different, is this, again, and I use this example frequently because I think people can understand it. If, say, mRNA is the equivalent to, say, Tylenol, and, say, AstraZeneca is equivalent to ibuprofen, they both accomplish the same thing but maybe work in your body a different way. How then is Novavax different again?
It's kind of the same thing. They all show you the spike protein. It's just how it gets into your body. So the AstraZeneca, you have a vector, a different virus delivers a spike protein into your cell. The mRNA vaccine convinces your body to make the spike protein. Novavax, it essentially just gives you the spike protein or something that looks like it. And it just introduces your body to this thing that it needs to fight. It's the method of introduction that's different. That's all. Ultimately, they all do the same thing.
Hello? Appreciate the time. Thanks so very much. Raywat Deonandan joining us live here on 680 CJOB.